Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, and I appreciate your calling this hearing today as we review the nomination of Mr. Mark Wetjen. And I welcomed the appearance of the Majority Leader to the sometimes powerful Senate Agriculture Committee. I had hoped he would stay around so we could talk to him about our budget responsibilities and specific numbers, but perhaps we can do that at a later time. Commissioner Dodd, let me associate myself with the remarks of the Chairwoman in regards to your service on the Commission. You, sir, have been an independent voice, and I appreciate that very much. And to Commissioner Summers, the same in regards to what the Chairwoman has indicated. In my view, you have been a voice of reason, and I'm looking forward to your continued service. I've met with Mr. Wetjen. He obviously is a very bright and capable young man. I had sort of hoped that Colin started trying to testify was obviously I don't know if it was by the committee's recommendation or whether it was his parents, but I can hear him in the background indicating his support for your nomination and offering several recommendations. At any rate, being very bright and capable, however, Mr. Wetjen, when confirmed, will have a very difficult job ahead of him. 1 year ago today, the President signed the Dodd-Frank Act into law. Mr. Wetjen is intricately involved in that in terms of the process, and it involves a labyrinth of new requirements impacting not just Wall Street and Main Street, but every rural route throughout the countryside. This committee has held 2 hearings on the general implementation of this new law. I hope we will have more. We've heard from folks up and down the industry chain, from end users to dealers to clearinghouses to self-regulating entities, all with varying degrees of concern about how the CFTC plans to regulate futures and swaps. I and many of my colleagues have expressed some concern over the CFTC's proposals, and I point out that that effort has been bipartisan. For instance, I understand in May, members of the New York delegation, of which this committee is very fortunate to have Senator Gillibrand as a member, sent a letter to the CFTC, FDIC, the Fed, and the Office of Comptroller of the Currency on the issue of CFTC's attempt to regulate trades occurring overseas between non-U.S. Participants. Now, I share their concern. Would tell Mr. Wetjen that if you all want a honorary marshal of Dodge City to sign a similar letter next time, just let me know. I did not vote for Dodd-Frank for several reasons, but one central concern was that the rules outlined in the legislation would have the effect of driving business overseas. I'm very worried about that. Moving liquidity from the United States to our competitors. The New Yorker's letters expressed this concern, but we've also heard from our competitors themselves. I included a letter from Japan into the record in our last hearing. Following up on that theme, recently a Deutsche Bank executive was quoted as describing CFTC's proposals as a terrific opportunity for European countries at the expense of the United States. Let me repeat that, a terrific opportunity for European countries at the expense of our country. I mention this today to highlight the importance of the job for Mr. Wetjen as nominated. I sincerely hope it was not the intent of Dodd-Frank and those who wrote the law to create a mass exodus of capital from the United States. I know that was not the intent when they wrote it, but the law of unintended effects seems to carry the day around here when we pass such far-reaching legislation. That's why we need commissioners who will adhere to the law, act in accordance with congressional intent, and be an independent voice. Thorough cost-benefit analysis must be completed on these proposals so the Commissioners, Congress, and the public have a full understanding of their consequences. By the time Mr. Wetjen may arrive at the CFTC, there will probably be more than 40 final rules to consider, many of them the most complex and controversial. The Chairman Gensler, has indicated that he plans to hold meetings to finalize these rules every few weeks for the remainder of the year. That's a tough schedule. Now, this is not intended as a criticism of you, Mr. Wetjen, by any means, but I wonder, and we talked about it when you took the courtesy to come by and visit with me, how can anyone be expected to absorb the huge amount, thousands and thousands of pages of information that has been collected on each one of these rules without having the benefit of meeting with affected parties and being involved in the entire process? So I'm going to be interested in hearing how the nominee plans to climb this mountain of information before he's asked to vote on a rule. I'm sure he can respond very well. Again, thank you, Madam Chairwoman, for calling this hearing, and thank you to Majority Leader Reid for joining us today. And again, I thank Mr. Wetjen and his very lovely family for being in attendance.
Thank you very much. And now I have two things that I need to do, Mr. Wetjen. First is to administer an oath that we have for all nominees. I would ask you to stand and raise your right hand. Do you swear and affirm that the testimony you are about to present is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you very much. And secondly, Mr. Wetjen, do you agree that if confirmed, you will appear before any duly constituted